Easily my favorite week on the regular season calendar. It's the Banjo Bowl live from IG Field this weekend. Welcome inside Bonfire Midweek. Darren Bombing to my virtual right, Zach Schnitzer, the Schnitz, as I like to affectionately call him. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us. A couple minutes late to the live stream on our new night, Wednesdays, the rest of the way. And looking forward to that, a true midweek for Bonfire Midweek. But Zach, first things first, how are you? How was your Labor Day in Manitoba? And how's your week been? Are you excited for the Banjo Bowl?
Oh, dude, I love the Banjo Bowl, man. Last Banjo Bowl, this is actually funny. Last Banjo Bowl is where it all started for the Schnitz. I love the Schnitz. I'm gonna keep that. I like it. After the Banjo Bowl, slightly inebriated, I had taken my daughter, and that's the night I started the podcast. So we come full circle now, buddy.
Yeah.
So after the Banjo Bowl, I won't be doing some budget crappy version of a podcast I tried. I should actually repost that. I will repost that so people can listen to me. We're going to be doing the post game, but super excited. We've got a party the night before we're going to talk about at Finn McCool's at Grant Park. And, so much to talk about with Labor Day, my friend.
That's why we were a couple minutes late going live, because I've got a laundry list of topics to get to here. I don't even know if we're going to have time to do an around the league. Maybe I'll just drop that on everybody right now. Yeah. Ottawa won a football game on the road, 38-24 in Montreal. So the Alouettes hot streak ends at the hands
of the Alouettes.
Of the Ottawa Red Blacks. Of course, we'll get into the to the Labor Day Classic a lot today. Toronto absolutely clobbers Hamilton. I'll take it. Bring it,
dude.
Come on.
You know what? Listen, I'll give you a not a whole free pass, but can I do half a free pass? I mean,
Hamilton is last in the East. At 3-9.
Yeah. So listen. I don't know if people could have. No, it's not like people were predicting at the beginning of the season they would be a tire fire like they are, right? But Evans has proven to be worse than we thought. He's kind of like a Jonathan Jennings. He's a flash in the pan guy. He's got the yips. He's basically done there.
Newman couldn't do anything.
Well, what was he gonna do?
I was wrong about the Hamilton Tiger Cats. I put them in my 1/3 of the season power rankings at number 4 behind Winnipeg, Calgary, BC. I was wrong. I will take the slings and arrows. Hamilton, half game back now of the Ottawa Red Blacks to give you a gauge of where they are right now. Edmonton goes into Calgary. Calgary hangs on for a 26-18 win. Taylor Cornelius seems to be getting better and better every week.
Yeah.
But Jake Mayer, this guy is the future of the Calgary Stampeders.
What did I tell you? Bo's done there. Bo's done. Bo's done. He's going to be on the panel next year. I put it that I put that at 1.5.
Yeah.
Honestly, the guy's going to go out. He's going to go out the way he wants to go, where he has complete control.
Sure.
By the way,
we want to go out on our own terms, right?
Sure we do. Listen.
Ask Lisa Laflamme.
Well, yeah. Right.
Brutal,
right?
She's so good. She is so good.
Yeah.
Either way, I digress. I'll take a shot. We are going to give this away today, too.
Yes.
Those are those
Andrew, you're off the clock. You lost your chance. And unlike Craig Dickinson, there's actual real consequences on Bonfire Sports for not showing up. You don't get the mug. Now, we're going to talk more about that, my friend. But I was going to say something about Hamilton. Listen, this is a great organization. O is a good coach, Coach O, right? Yep. I get why you said they were a good team. They've got studs on defense. They picked the wrong guy, obviously, with Dane Evans and Masoli. I think Tommy Condell needs to go, maybe. It's kind of a Jason Moss situation. Someone on a podcast I was listening to said Orlando Steinauer's job is in jeopardy. That is absolute BS.
I don't think so.
I
I don't
now
think so.
not to predict. Like you give someone a bad quarterback, then you basically have a bad coach. Like bad quarterbacks lose good coaches'
Yep.
jobs all the time. So I just I think that's an overreaction. They'll come back to the fold. So
Yeah.
why?
We'll see it. We'll see how that shakes out. Maybe they're going to go get Bo Levi Mitchell. Hmm?
Yeah,
Hmm.
next year. We've all talked about, right? Like you mentioned this, Darren. There Calgary's not getting rid of Bo Levi Mitchell this year. They're going for a championship. They need 2 quarterbacks, right? If Mayer
No,
gets
this year, yeah,
next
absolutely.
year, maybe. But I don't think Bo Levi Mitchell will go to a situation where he isn't 90% sure he's gonna succeed. I think his ego's too big.
Well, you tell me you're not going to succeed in Hamilton with all that talent, good coaching. Either way,
Yeah.
that was the week that was week 13 in the Canadian Football League. And for my dollar, the best game of the weekend was the barn burner at Mosaic. No pun intended. 2018, the Blue Bombers win. Cody Fajardo puts up 292 yards, but the Blue Bombers defense stands real strong in the second half, only allowed 4 points following that 14-0 lead that Saskatchewan took early in the game. We're going to talk about the Bombers' health, Nick Dembski, Drew Wolodarski, Zach Collaros, and Cody Fajardo, the Winnipeg defense. Of course, where did you go?
Well, my you see this charger, it fell apart. It's charging my phone.
We're going to get into Mark Leggio, right? Like the
Oh yeah.
55-yarder, the redemption kick of the year so far, the weave that eluded the
Weave,
pass rush
yes.
on the punt.
Can
And
I
then, of
just say
course,
something though, Darren? Sorry.
well, hang on.
Well,
Greg
okay,
Dickinson,
fine.
discipline,
Oh yeah.
leadership,
Yeah.
Duke Williams, Garrett Marino, and the offensive pass interference challenge when Shaq Evans was going toe to toe there.
Yeah.
And that was a weird one too, but lots of
Absolutely.
topics to get to. Where'd you want to go first?
Well, Andrea Kohach has a really good question here, actually. We should pin that one. We'll get to it.
Oops, here we go.
That's a good one.
Can someone answer for me why Evan Holm was the punt returner for the Bombers? They didn't try to run out of the end zone when he caught the punt that gave the Riders a point. He had room to run. After the game, Mike O'Shea, as clear as he will ever be in criticizing a player or a circumstance in the game, he was not, that was not by design. Nick Taylor the week before and letting the ball go over his head by design. That one was not. The nuance of games, right? You know, Michael Shea always says it's how's the flow of the game? How's the feel? There is no scientific answer. You can be into the stats, you can be into old school, tendencies and old school kind of tactics in football. There is no science to it. So Mike O'Shea you could tell he didn't like that one. But I don't think Evan Holm played bad. There was a lot of people criticizing him.
No, I don't think he played bad at all. Actually, had a couple of good returns, and he didn't put the ball on the turf.
And
Ran
this guy
straight
hasn't
ahead,
been here very long.
didn't lose
He's like cut.
yards.
Yeah, he's been cut a few times.
Yeah, and he dropped a punt in the preseason game in Edmonton. Everyone wanted his head.
Right.
He righted the ship. No, I just wanted to we talked post game about betting heavy on Toronto versus Hamilton with SIA.com/bonfire. Great website. I'm putting a plug for them. And I said, folks, bet the house if Jamie, everyone said on the chat, you guys, breaking news, Jamie Newman was starting. I had already bet $70, so I made a nice chunk.
$70. High roller.
But I should have bet the house. So I'm wondering, people on the chat, if you're on SIA, did anyone make any money? Because you should have, because it was basically a pick 'em with a rookie quarterback starting for Hamilton. Yeah, I hope somebody made money. That would make me happy.
Yeah. Well, no question.
I do also want to say, Darren,
Yeah.
I think what's bigger than all of this is the just tragedy in Saskatchewan with these stabbings. I think more than 10 people were killed. They've caught the 2 guys now. It was on James Smith Cree Nation in Weldon, Saskatchewan, and I just think, our
One
hearts
found
go out.
deceased, and then they found
Yeah.
the second individual today.
It's just it's heart-wrenching. It's bigger than football, and that Just an awful, awful, awful story. So
No question. And well, while it definitely took a toll on that Saskatchewan community and many individuals and families within that, I'm glad it didn't affect people visiting the province,
yeah,
because there were thousands visiting for the Labor Day Classic. But yeah, our thoughts and best wishes to everybody out in Saskatchewan, and anybody affected by those types of tragedies. Yeah, it's just one of those things that it happens, and you really have to start asking questions why.
yeah.
But we will digress. I won't take a shot for that one.
No.
For that, but really a laundry list of topics to get to. Maybe we'll start with Mark Leggio, because some
Yeah.
people were kind of already in the live chat saying Leggio for mayor. What a 180 the perspective on Mark Leggio has taken, going from missing 2 short distance field goals to win a game, to tie a game in overtime, to where he is now. And full credit to Mark Leggio. We've said this on the show before. He always stands up in front of the media and in front of reporters, and faces the music and faces the questions. And after the game, he brought up the Montreal game,
Yeah.
and he brought up his teammates both at that time and then before he kicked that 55-yarder. Guys are saying, like, I know you're going to make it. Go kick it. Go kick this. They've seen him do it in practice over and over again. But he did it with pressure. He did it with effectively the game on the line at that point. Of course, an interception on defense definitely helped that cause, and helped them win the game. But he did it on the road in maybe the most hostile environment the Blue Bombers could imagine. I don't know, maybe Calgary, but definitely Saskatchewan in that conversation. Full credit to Mark Leggio. He's been punting very well. Now he's kicking well. If you objectively landed on planet Earth right now and looked at the numbers for Mark Leggio this year, you'd be like, oh yeah, I agree, he's missed a couple, but his numbers overall are very strong this season. The faith Mike O'Shea and the Winnipeg Blue Bombers had in Mark Leggio, it appears to be paying off.
Well, and now, I think, Darren, are unimpeachable when you say, I trust Mike O'Shea, I trust the Canadian Mafia, I trust Ted Gavaya, Danny McManus, the Scouts, because people may question some of their decisions. They might, there's still people that say, oh, Mike O'Shea's too loyal. There were people calling for Leggio's head. And this is just another example of trusting the Canadian Mafia. They know what they're doing. You can't, I can't believe people still are questioning these guys. Look at Mark Leggio as a perfect example.
Yeah.
The guy loses a game. He's got the goat horns. He struggled last year and lost his job. And O'Shea sticks with him. And look what he does. And what was more impressive? That 55-yard field goal. The guy's never hit above 50 in the CFL. On the, like you said, the most pressure-packed regular season situation you could possibly imagine.
I think he road. He's hit
a 50.
Yeah.
He's hit a 50, but never
this
above
is
50.
Longest to answer Sandy's question in the live chat right now.
Longest field goal ever. After wearing the goat horns, what's more impressive, hitting that on the road in Labor Day? People are booing the heck out of him as he's lining up for the kick. I couldn't believe they were going for that kick, but apparently he was hitting 60-yarders in warm-up.
Yeah.
Good morning, Towzed from Thailand.
And I asked Mike O'Shea at walkthrough the day before the game at Mosaic about the wind conditions at in that stadium, because they are unique. That toilet bowl, of course, right? You got the bowl to it, and then you got these gaps where wind can come in. It is a sunken bowl. It's below the surface of the street level, or whatever you want to call it, similar to IG Field. But that wind can do weird things. And when it's hot summer, late August, early September, you can get serious gusts of wind with those bits of cold air and the hot muggy air in there. But it seemed to be manageable for Mark Leggio. And what was more impressive? What were you more impressed by out there? Hit up the live chat right now. Mark Leggio's 55-yarder or the weave that allowed him to get a 49-yard punt off on a play that could have easily been catastrophe. Saskatchewan could have taken that moment and built on that momentum, built on their lead. I think it was
17-7 at that point.
Yeah, right? Like it could have been 23-7, 24-7 if they blocked that and were able to get a touchdown, or even 20-7 with a field goal. So hit up the live chat right now what you were more impressed with. How about you, Zach?
Well, it's hard to say, right? The one thing that I was looking at was how often these things happen. So how often does a guy hit a 55-yarder on the road? It happens more than someone eludes a free rusher on a punt. Like, I honestly have never seen that before. And if I've seen it, I've forgotten. And if I've forgotten, it's because the guy didn't get off a freaking 49-yard punt. I mean, that's a good punt, even if he isn't running away from somebody. And that would have been I think that may have been the game, Darren, because then if you're down 23-7 on the road in Labor Day, you've basically got to abandon the run, which is really not the Bombers' MO.
It's Saskatchewan's MO.
It is. That's right. We're going to talk about that. But his athleticism there was just like, it was a very subtle juke. I called it balletic, which gave a thumbs up from got a thumbs up from someone. Even questioned balletically, was that a word? And I'm like, yeah, damn, I searched right it is.
I'm like, this is a word. It's like if you pulled out dynastic in the past, like a dynasty.
I got some words.
Now you got balletically.
David loves it. Buddy David, 128, shout out. I honestly, I can't decide, because he just, if it's Rene Paredes or Sean White hitting a 55, I'm like, okay, it's the weave. But because it was Leggio and the game was on the line, I don't know. It just, that 55-yarder sticks out to me, Darren, as something like he's never done. He's wearing the goat horns. There wasn't even much of a win by that point. And my God, like, at Jeff Hamilton's article, by the way, folks, you gotta read Jeff's stuff in the Free Press. It's great stuff, and I always read it. And he had a point there where Leggio had self-talk in his head. He was saying in his head, I know what I'm doing, just smash the ball. And he knew as soon as he hit it off the foot, it was going in. And it cleared it by like 3-4 yards, right? Unbelievable. But I don't know. I think it's the kick, Darren, but I'm not totally decided.
I think the 55-yarder is what we will remember and what fans and people will remember a year from now. But I think the weave was more impressive. John Elliott, who's watching live on YouTube. What's going on, John? Thanks for joining us. TSN Turning Point. The bonfire burning point was the weave. A scoop and score the other way could have been a very, very different football game at that point. Let's move on from Mark Leggio. We're going to talk about the Blue Bombers' health. Teadric Hansen, who left the game, a couple of the other guys that are working to get back into the lineup. Let's talk about the Blue Bombers' offense and a deep threat that we talked about here on the show and on our pregame and our postgame months ago. Do the Blue Bombers have a deep threat? And there he is, guy who's been on this roster for a long, long time, a guy born and raised right here in Winnipeg. Nick Dembski with a huge touchdown.
Yeah.
Beautiful ball from Zach Collaros to drop it where only he could get it. Excellent play call from Buck Pierce in taking Nick Dembski from one side of the field, running him a deep cross field corner route against the strong side linebacker. Somebody, Zach Collaros, on Saturday before the game described as special, unprompted. Nobody asked him about it. He said Moncrief is special. and because he kind of can play everywhere, but he is a bigger guy. He can cover. But to send him far side of the field, essentially Dembski running like a go route, but to the corner on the other side of the field, it was a long developing play. Credit to the offensive line. They protected Zach Collaros well against a very good defensive front, as we know, maybe the best in the league in the Saskatchewan Roughriders, with or without that number 92 guy. And putting it where only Nick Dembski could get it. Absolute dime to get the Bombers their first score of the game, got the wheels rolling, and helped kind of temper that momentum that Saskatchewan had early.
Yeah, they were up 14-0. That was absolutely massive for momentum, right? It just took the wind out of the sails of the Riders, and from there they would only score 4 more points.
Yeah.
Right. And the other thing is Dembski, I mean, you don't think of him as a deep threat. I think it's in part because he can do everything. You've called him the Canadian Army knife.
Yeah.
So you don't necessarily think, oh, he's a deep threat. But he's a deep threat just because he can run and do the sweep and catch things over the middle doesn't mean he isn't a deep threat. It just means that he can do everything really frickin' well. And he very nearly had a 70-yard touchdown in the second half, Darren. Mm-hmm. If only for Milligan, the DB, making an all-world play, by the way. That was one of the plays of the game, I thought. And Milligan in the postgame said he baited Collaros into throwing it because he was off coverage. He appeared off coverage, and then he was able to turn his hips and run back and just get the ball out. Dembski said in the postgame, I was sure I had that one. So, yeah. But the point is he was in position, and if not for an incredible play by a DB, he has 120 yards and 2 touchdowns in 2 plays, right? Yeah. Like, unbelievable by Nick Dembski.
Yeah, he finishes 5 catches on 6 targets, 79 yards, that 50-yard touchdown, 3 second down conversions for Dembski, let alone, 3 times he carried the ball for 17 yards. So he's averaging almost 6 yards per carry as that, gadget tailback, jet sweep guy. But mention the 3 second down conversions. Can we talk about the man we could call Mr. Second Down, Mr. Broken Play, Mr. Fourth Quarter? Drew Wolotarski. 4 catches, everything thrown his way. He caught 56 yards, including a long of 24. And 4 times he converted second down to move the chains. He's just all reliable. Yep. It's very, very comforting, I'm sure, for Buck Pierce and maybe in particular Zach Collaros to have Drew Wolotarski on that wide side of the field, that traditional Canadian receiver spot. And when you need him, when you really, really need him, Drew Wolotarski is there. Gave him one of my game balls on the post-game show. He's having a heck of a season. It all kind of really started in the Grey Cup last year, right?
Yeah, he had a great Grey Cup. I think he had over 60 yards or something. And, we talk about I don't think the hash marks have changed things that much, Darren. We talked about this beginning of the season, right? Is there going to be more action on the field side? And I don't think there has been. I haven't run the numbers or anything. But when you have a guy on the wide side who they don't usually throw to, the guys who usually are a hidden Canadian, let's be honest, Darren, they hide a Canadian receiver there for the ratio. When he's a stud, you have such an advantage.
Yeah.
And the Bombers are so good on second down. I think they have the best second down conversion rate in the CFL. And the Riders have the worst. And you could see that in that game when Saskatchewan abandoned the run and they were second and long, especially with their porous O-line. I don't even know if porous is being friendly. Swiss cheese is more like it. And, they don't have that possession receiver. And to be fair, Fajardo isn't as accurate. But to have Wolotarski is just, it's a game changer, man. Like, he is the definition of a possession receiver. He also can get the long ones. You remember that one earlier in the season where he snatched it out of thin air, 40, 45 yards, right?
Laying out. Yeah.
When you have a field side receiver like that, who's Canadian, it's it's unbelievable. And he's a
Well,
great guy. And
at this point, the Bombers don't even need to dress a Canadian there. They have 9 Canadian starters. In the Riders press box, I hear, Regina media and Saskatchewan media talking about like, well, they don't even need a Canadian tailback. No, they don't. They don't need a Canadian safety, but they choose to keep Nick Hallett there right now as the third stringer in for Brandon Alexander and Malcolm Thompson. They don't need Drew Wolatarski out there. They could put Tavares Harrison. They are a little bit thinner at receiver, but Drew Wolatarski, I don't care what his passport is. He is showing that he is not just a good CFL player, that he is beyond that and makes impacts in games, especially the broken plays. That's what I was really, I've been really impressed with Drew Wolatarski. I wanted to mention the second down conversions. Saskatchewan was 7 of 20 for 35% on second down. Winnipeg, 10 of 20. They were 50%. That doesn't sound like a big difference, but it really is. That 15% is the difference between being able to flip the field and maybe being stuck more in your own end and having to punt it away. And field position's everything. If you didn't learn that from watching the Bombers on Labor Day, you learned it in the game against Montreal. You learned it in the game against Calgary here in Winnipeg a couple weeks ago. That's everything in the CFL. The singles. Do you want to talk about the singles? Woo.
Which singles are we talking about at the Palomino Club? Or are we the punt singles? Right. Well, listen, I actually, whether Holm made a mistake or not, in hindsight, it was a great decision because he would have only been at the 15-yard line had he caught that. I don't think he had much room there, Darren. Mm-hmm. You get at the 40. That's a big difference, and it is a game of field position. At the end of the day, these teams are all very competitive and close to each other. You get it at the 40, you're a couple first downs away from kicking a field goal in a close game. So that there was that single. Then there was the one in the first half, right? Like Saskatchewan had a punt single to make it 8-7.
Right.
Is that
they
the
just
one you mean?
That through, right?
Yeah. The Vedvik, like you're thinking you're watching John Ryan, right? Like I thought they got rid of that problem, but apparently not. Vedvik just smashes it. Tao Zen says, "Ooh, Sask singles." Well, we'll see. We'll see Friday night. Kraft singles.
Yes. We will see. The invasion begins this coming weekend.
Darren, people were asking about injuries. So it looks like, according to your report, Teodric Hansen has a torn Achilles, eh?
Well, I don't know if it's torn.
It's just an Achilles injury.
Yeah, we have no specifics on Teodric Hansen. I will say this. It's interesting that he's on the injury report today. It's interesting. Maybe it's a strain, maybe it's a pull, something like that, because players that go on to the 6 game, like if they suffer something serious, like say Michael Couture, who looks like he could come back for the Banjo Bowl and start at center. If you go on the 6 game, you're on the 6 and they don't announce your injury. That's what I find interesting about Teodric Hansen. So I'm not believing anything or coming to any conclusions until that depth chart and roster comes out on Friday ahead of the Saturday Banjo Bowl at IG Field.
Fair. That's interesting.
Pulling up the Bombers injury report right now, and it is a short report. Now, there are still a lot of guys on the 6 game injured list, but Hansen with the Achilles, he did not practice. Either did linebacker Malik Clements, has a quadriceps injury. Mike Miller has so often been a non-participant in practice week after week. He always plays in the game, so I don't think there's too much.
It's like the genius in your class, right? In high school, never studies. They still get an A+, and you're like, screw that guy.
No,
he doesn't need to practice.
Briggs, in the past. Briggs
so
has not missed. Briggs must be like the healthiest of his entire career. I say this in jest, of course, tongue in cheek, but he's been practicing all the time this year. That has not always been the case through his many years here in Winnipeg.
Well, and Fritchie asking about Ellingson, eh? So he still isn't practicing.
No.
And you're expecting Alexander to not quite be ready for the Banjo Bowl, hey?
I don't see any reason to rush him. Like, why rush him? What's the point? You're facing a team that's under 500. Yeah. Winnipeg is 11-1.
Yeah.
Why rush. Like, I understand fans want to see
They're
Brandon
dying
Alexander.
for him, right? He's a fan favorite.
Totally.
He's a stud.
And rightfully so. He is a phenomenal football player, a leader, everything. People love seeing him light up a receiver coming across the
Oh,
middle.
yeah.
But why rush him?
I
Wouldn't
agree.
you
There's no
rather have
point.
Brandon Alexander for, say, a West Final and a Grey Cup, or would you rather have him for 3 games in September?
Yeah. No, here's a question, though, is do you see Malcolm Thompson coming in for Nick Hallett?
I
Or where
was I wouldn't say I was blown away, but I was a little bit surprised he was on the roster and he didn't start. Maybe he's still battling through some things. Safety and being a Canadian for the ratio, all that's like, I know the Bombers start more Canadians than they need to, in particular in Saskatchewan, 2 more than they
Mhm.
need to. But having a Canadian DB like Malcolm Thompson to go in a pinch, maybe he wasn't quite 100%. So they gave the bulk of the work to Nick Hallett, and hat tip to Nick Hallett. That tip ball late in the game, it's his first career interception.
Yeah,
I'm
buddy, that was
sure
great.
that felt good. I don't think he's played his best football
No.
as of late, but Winnipeg is they're building up the levy enough that you're only as strong as your weakest link. Well, I don't know if that's totally the case in 12-on-12 football, because if you have a bit of a weakness, you can make up for it in other areas. Janarian Grant, non-participant once again today, groin issue. Anytime it's those soft tissue injuries, they can take some time. I know Greg Ellingson was listed as a foot. He's no longer on the injury report, so on the 6 game. But it's probably something nagging him, and they just don't
Mhm.
want it to be aggravated or re-aggravated if it's the same thing that kept him out of a handful of
Well, and
games
as you said,
earlier.
Darren, like, why rush Ellingson? Why rush him now? They're 11-1. They're gonna wrap up the West in the next few games, I imagine. Get him ready for the playoffs. Now,
Yeah,
Couture is an interesting one. I expect he starts the Banjo Bowl, hey? Or what are you thinking?
I I would presume,
Yeah.
but again, you don't know. Uh, Upgrade, sure.
Yeah,
He's your CFLPA All-Star starting
absolutely.
center. And it's a broken arm. He'd been practicing in kind of like a pseudo cast, more like a plate across the arm, just to kind of protect it a little bit. But again, do they need to? If he's ready, he'll go.
Yeah,
It's not like he's coming back from, like in Brandon Alexander's case, a knee surgery.
right.
It's a broken arm. If he feels strong and comfortable and ready, play him. But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. Speculatively, I would give him a 75% chance of starting on Saturday.
See, there's a guy I'd want back for the Banjo Bowl. I think Kolinkowski, he caused a couple penalties holding. I think he played great in spot duty, Darren. But it's an upgrade, and when you need to run the ball, I think it's nice to have Couture there. And what I'm interested in seeing is, like, you've seen Brady Oliveira's game improve, and that's without the starting center. So you put the starting
Mhm.
center back in there, and you talked about a few shows ago how important that starting center is for the run game. They're calling the formation, they're calling the play. They are the anchor of the O line. So when it's a veteran like Couture and a CFLPA All Star,
Yeah.
and if you can run the ball on the Riders a little bit more successfully than we did in the Labor Day, I mean, that just ups your game and opens up that playbook. And I think then you really put yourself in a good position to really blow away the Riders.
Yeah,
So
completely agree. So to recap, uh, still on. Well, I'll mention waiters asking when Brandon Alexander comes back, should he play corner or halfback? I think he should go right to safety. That's just my feel. I know Jamal Parker is filling in for Demario Houston, who's on the 6 game injured list just as of a couple weeks ago. There are a lot of guys working their way back. I have not seen Carlton Agadosi at practice. I
yeah,
was not at practice today, so he might have been there. But Agadosi, Brandon Alexander, Greg Ellingson, Noah Hallett has been working with Brandon Alexander side by side through all of this. Probably a similar timeline for return on him as well with a knee issue. Demario Houston on the 6th game. Of course, we know Mercy Maston's season is likely done. Patrice Rene, the Canadian rookie corner out of the University of North Carolina. On the 6th game, Drew Richmond, who's been there all year, probably a strong candidate to be the next in line to play tackle on the Blue Bombers offensive line. So next year, year after, we'll see. And then, of course, Kyrie Wilson on the 6th game as well.
And Kyrie Wilson, you've mentioned, hey, that I kind of don't want to believe it, but you don't see him coming back, eh?
It's all speculation, right? It's very hard to get injury information.
Of course it is. It's like a vault. It's like a vault.
It's nearly impossible to get injury information in Winnipeg. That's not always the case in the CFL and other markets, but speculatively, I don't know. It would take something.
Yeah,
no,
that's a huge loss. I mean, Rutledge
for
is
these guys
well,
too. Like, I just don't see Mike O'Shea as the type of guy saying, like, put your career on the line or put your ability to play long-term, your long-term ability to play or your long-term health on the line to get into a playoff game. If the Bombers,
fair enough. Yep.
They're 11-1. If they, they've locked down a playoff spot. If they lock down first in the West and host that West final, they did it without him.
Yep.
You could have a lot more football ahead of you. I think that's part of it. Interesting note here from Transcona Pauly. What's going on, Pauly? Good to see you back as always. I don't care how good you are. You can't miss all season and then be expected to play in the playoffs at a high level. Absolutely valid point. But it's not about ensuring he's playing at a high level. It's ensuring that he is healthy enough to play. It's clearly been a very serious injury for Brandon Alexander. I know, like, science and the rest, it's all moved forward quite well, but the reality is they just want to make sure he's good to go before they put him in there, earlier than maybe.
And I would argue, I think if you're a vet like that and an all-star, I think you actually can come in and play at a high level. You saw it with Andrew Harris last year in the West Final. The guy hadn't played in several weeks, and he owned that game. So another reason, just I don't want to belabor the point about the Mafia, but another reason, people were really questioning that decision to go for the younger guys in Augustine and Oliveira, Darren, over Andrew Harris. And then you see Andrew Harris torch us in that Toronto game again.
Mm-hmm.
It's very hard for me to question their strategy, their long-term planning. They are making great decisions. And again, who's leading the CFL in rushing? I know the Bombers lead the CFL in rush attempts, and it's a big part of their identity, but it's still Brady Oliveira. Brady Oliveira is leading the league in rushing. And his average wasn't superb in the Labor Day Classic, Darren.
Well, no, they were just pounding it in the middle, right?
They pounded it. They stuck with the run, and it worked. And you saw the opposite happen for the Riders. God only knows why they stopped running the ball. Because Hickson, you talked about this on the post game. I mean, the guy is talented as heck. You lose him. He's so small. And he's hard to bring down. He's elusive. He's getting extra yak yards after contact. Like, he was playing a phenomenal game. Do you know how many times they ran him in the second half? Twice.
Mm-hmm.
And the only reason they ran him the second time is because they were on second and short. They were on second and short because he ran for 8 yards on first down. The only other time they went to him was a screen that he had over 20 yards, but there was a holding call. Like, what are you thinking? But that's the difference between good coaching and bad coaching. People don't like sort of Buck Pierce sometimes. He just keeps running up the gut, but it works. It wears teams down. And then you can really fool them with the jet sweep with Dembski, which they did to seal the game and burn the clock at the end of the game in the fourth quarter, because everybody's expecting Oliveira up the gut. Then you burn them with the odd McRae off tackle run for 20, 30 yards. But Saskatchewan went away from the run, and I don't know why. The Piffles guys were talking about it. In fact, they called the name of their podcast, there was an F word in there, but like, what are you doing? Like,
Yeah.
it's inexcusable, and it speaks to another point we'll talk about. But man,
Well, let's get into that right now, because it's almost 8:15. I got a fantasy football draft at 8:30,
yeah,
and I thought I was going to be picking
priorities, eh?
during. Well, no, I thought I was going to be picking during the show. Like, it was scheduled for 7:30 tonight, and I guess the commish showed up, got home from work late, and wants to have dinner. Cool, works for me.
Yeah.
But I was going to be picking this like 2 quarterback, 3 flex player league, just absolutely bonkers with like a half dozen.
Yeah.
Like
You would have ended up with Mitch Trubisky or something.
No, I don't know. Nope. Nope, that's not happening. Craig Dickinson, the offensive pass interference challenge. Let's just be blunt and short about it. It was boneheaded. It made no sense. And his explanation after the game also made no sense. But Craig Dickinson is the captain of the ship. Jeremy O'Day is the general manager, but it is Craig Dickinson who runs the football team. He runs football ops on the ground. Duke Williams takes a ridiculous boneheaded penalty as a guy in street clothes on the sideline that definitely hurt the Rough Riders' chances to win in the Labor Day Classic. And then Garrett Marino takes a bit of a, I'm not going to call it a cheap shot. I'm going to call it a greasy shot at Zach Collaros after he pitches the ball away. Anybody that says that Garrett Marino didn't know where the ball was or didn't believe it was purposeful in what he was doing, you're wrong. You're absolutely wrong. Clear as day to me. Clear as day, he did that unnecessarily. However, not a penalty. Happens often in football, but his reputation precedes him. Cut by the Saskatchewan Roughriders yesterday on.
And do you think that they did that unilaterally? Because I don't. I bet you they got a call from Randy Ambrosi. I think they did. Yeah.
You think the CFL did it?
I think the CFL stepped in and said
they
can't officially, Darren, but you saw that, moments later, Ambrosi saying that, I make the final decision on whether a guy can be signed.
Back in the league.
Basically saying, like, don't sign this guy.
There's some precedent here that is being set by the CFL. They've pulled players out of the league before, like Jerome Messam. Allegation.
Johnny Manziel.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Manziel was a bunch of different stuff and more accusations about domestic abuse and these sorts of things.
But yeah, Jerome Messam for sure. Yeah.
Jerome Messam was voyeurism, right?
Yeah.
And filming sexual conduct without the other person's knowledge.
Right.
And he had his contract voided. This is on the field stuff for Garrett Marino. Yeah, he's an idiot on Twitter and, inexplicably can't explain whether he reached out to Jeremiah Masoli or not. And he's clearly a bit of a meathead when it comes to speaking for himself and trying to argue his points or his stance, if he even has one. But he is a talented football player. He is a young man, and it's all going to come down to whether somebody wants to give him another chance. The precedent is the Canadian Football League deciding or making it clear that they can choose to nullify a new contract or even an existing one in the case of Manziel and more so Jerome Messam, because Manziel had parameters in place. You need to do A, B, C, D, and then you can still remain in the league, and that didn't happen. But they can void contracts if deemed valid. I believe deemed valid is the actual language in the CBA that the commissioner has that power to do. In the case of Garrett Marino, I'm not sure the CFL stepped in. I think, you know what, Zach, you may be right. You may be right. You're making me realize it now as I kind of speak to it, because when the news came out, like at dinner time on Monday night, like right when the newspapers are packing things away for the night and sending things off to print, and the 6 o'clock news is already rolling with their story. It's tough to cover, right? Talk radio, is pretty much wrapped up for the day with the drive.
Interesting point.
Well, yeah, no, that's a normal PR move. That's a normal thing. 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock on a Friday. They did it on a holiday Monday.
Yeah.
But my initial take was, why now? Like, what was it? And your point about it being potentially, the Canadian Football League putting pressure on Saskatchewan to move on is a valid one. I wonder, like there could be somebody who's healthy who wasn't in Saskatchewan, and now they have somebody who can step in and without too much of a drop off in talent or in numbers or that sort of thing on the Saskatchewan defensive front. But yeah, absolutely, it could be the Canadian Football League. That's a great point by you, Zach, because while it wasn't necessarily a dirty hit or an illegal hit, what he did to Zach Collaros, I'm sure, shook the bones of the CFL, of Zach Collaros, of the Blue Bombers, of a lot of teams that have to play against the Saskatchewan Roughriders this year, but maybe most notably the Canadian Football League, because if Nathan Rourke is the first quarterback out for the season, or sorry, Jeremiah Masoli, then Nathan Rourke, and then it's Zach Collaros, can you imagine?
Well, exactly right.
Like, those are the three best quarterbacks in the league right now. Maybe Jake Mayer in there.
Yeah.
But
no, it was the definition literally of unnecessary roughness. It was unnecessary. First of all, the ball was gone. It was a running play clearly, and he hit him late, and Zach got rattled by it. And that's a very good point from that perspective, from an entertainment perspective. You can't lose Zach Collaros now.
League without the three of the four best quarterbacks.
Right. And let me just say this. I actually hope Marino gets help. And the reason I say that is because his pattern of behavior of continuing to play recklessly, to seemingly not care how other people feel, to lie, to say he's apologized or tried to reach out and actually hasn't, and continues to try and injure people and then celebrate. I mean, this guy is mentally ill. I think he's possibly on the psychopathy scale.
That's possible. That is
I'm
possible.
just saying, as an armchair psychologist, that I do have a background in mental health. These are all signs of someone having an antisocial personality.
You are a trained therapist.
Yes.
Speak to your education.
No, I
think that's important when people hear that.
Intent to injure several times in a row. Doesn't matter about the consequences. He doesn't care. He is parading and hot dogging it after he takes guys out. He's threatening them ahead of time, so it's premeditated. And then he with Masoli, and then he goes and does it. The racism. The guy is not healthy in the mind. And I know everybody's pissed at him and thinks he's a POS and all this stuff, but these people, a very small percentage of people are like psychopaths genetically, good upbringing. They're just psychopaths and kill people. Mostly, this is upbringing. This is really horrible. And I'd love to know his story.
I would like to know his story too. Reporters have been dissuaded from speaking to Garrett Marino, not because of they're trying to protect the player, but because he is not a good speaker.
Look at that.
No, I get that, but it is what it is. If you're a reporter, your time is valuable as much as the players and the coaches are. I was told by media in Saskatchewan that they try to talk to Garrett Marino about growing up in California and surfing and, going to school and all just can't get much out of him. Some athletes are like that. Some athletes are like that. Some athletes get better in time. I remember talking to Kenny Lawler, who came to the Blue Bombers on the practice roster, and then the next year was on the practice roster and then made the roster for a couple games. And then the next year, he's a superstar. And then the next year, he gets a $300,000 contract and everybody knows who he is, right? When he was a practice roster guy, he was quiet. He was reserved. He kept to himself. We have to remember Garrett Marino has only been in the CFL. I'm not making excuses for him right now. So don't clip this and say Bombing's making excuses for Garrett Marino. Absolutely not. But the reality is he has been in the CFL for less than 20 games. He is effectively a rookie. It can take time for him to, get comfortable in dealing with the media. A lot of people aren't, and it's just that's part of it. But to your assertion that it could be a mental health problem, off the field stuff, certainly could. We don't know. We don't know. On the field, I will play a devil's advocate here because it certainly could. However, as somebody who's been around the game of football since I was a child and works with professionals and, off-field football people and junior football and university football, and boards and Football Manitoba and the rest, football has part of it. Like, it's the most violent sport on earth, right? And players, say like a Garrett Marino or like so many others before him, are taught to play the game and create violence. And sometimes that can be mistaught. Sometimes it can be misconstrued. Sometimes it can create very bad habits. Okay. Garrett Marino is a talented football player. In a vacuum, he is a talented football player. And he may have gotten away with this type of play through his career because when you're an amateur and going through the ranks of high school, college, junior college, whatever, you're kind of moving around. So it's hard to say, well, this guy's dirty, get him out of the league when, he plays 2 years here and 2 years there and, a bunch of tryouts in the NFL or the CFL or whatever. The point I'm trying to make is he may have gotten away with this type of play on the field for most of his life.
Sure. It's easier just to pass the buck, right? Just like, give him the, he's someone else's problem now.
Well,
right?
or you know what? He had 6 quarterback pressures and 2 sacks and a knockdown. Or whatever. Like some football coaches may miscoach him or may have been less concerned with his personal development than with what he can do for me on Sunday. You know what I mean? So have we heard the last of Garrett Marino, I wonder?
I think so. I don't think you're going to see him in the CFL again. I think the head office will step in if anyone even tries to court him. Like I think about Chris Jones would be maybe a guy who would court someone like that. I just don't see him coming back to the CFL. He's dangerous. He's a repeat offender, Darren. I used to work in the jails. I did forensic therapy. Like, this guy is a repeat offender. It's premeditated. He doesn't seem to have any empathy. For all we know, as I think Phyllis said, maybe, or it was Lynn, he may have a concussion, CTE, like we don't know. But the point is that he's bad for the league in various ways. You can't have a guy like that in the league. Yeah. You just can't. And I guess if I may, it leads to the bigger issue. Why was this allowed to go on for so long?
Well, that's the big question. And I think that's what leads to the conversation about Craig Dickinson.
Craig Dickinson. I have lots of thoughts about Craig Dickinson because I've rewatched the game. I listened to his post game. I listened to the Sports Gauge post game. I listened to CKRM, the Green Zone, Piffles. Like, I've read articles. I went a deep dive on this. Craig Dickinson is like your rebound girlfriend, boyfriend, partner. It's the Goldilocks. This one's too hot. This one's too cold. This one's just right. They had Chris Jones, who left them in a terrible situation. But he was like this badass Darth Vader guy. So who do they go to? They go to the opposite. Mr. Milquetoast. Mr. I want everybody to like me. Right? He's the rebound. oh, he seems attractive because he's so different than Chris Jones. He wants everybody to like him. He wants everybody to be his friend. He would never jump ship like that. He's a loyalty guy. Guess what? He's a bad leader. He is a bad leader of men, Darren. I
Mhm.
say that unequivocally. I don't think he wakes up in the morning saying, I'm going to be a bad leader. It's just some people don't have it for various reasons. He doesn't have it. He doesn't command respect. He's willow twisting in the wind. You know, his explanation that you were talking about for the OPI challenge, which, by the way, when Glenn Suter, who everybody accuses of being a Ryder homer, and I'm not sold on that. I like Glenn Suter, but if Glenn Suter says that's a bad challenge for Saskatchewan,
Yep.
then you shouldn't be challenging it. And his explanation,
It was a bad challenge.
it
It was
was
a bad challenge.
awful. The guy's arms were extended. Like, you never, like, when you get OPI is a rare call in the first place, right? And when it's that obvious, not only did he lose the challenge, he loses his timeout, which allows Winnipeg to burn the clock to 8 seconds at the end of the game. He could have had a timeout there.
Yeah.
Yes, Corey May Suter was a homer on the McRae hit by Edam. That was just BS. It was obviously a headshot. But listen, he wants everyone to be happy. He wants to talk it out. Words do not mean anything.
I apologize for cutting you off. Just to clarify on waiters here, because I pulled this up. Derek Taylor said Dickinson challenged to show support for the
Yes.
offense. That's what Craig Dickinson said.
That's what he said in his post game.
Yeah. So DT,
do you know how you?
Yeah.
But you know how you support the offense? You have the 30,000 foot view, and your vision is, I'm going to do what it takes for this offense and defense and special teams to win. I'm not trying to win friends to show support. You think Shaq Evans feels supported by Craig Dickinson today, or even gives two shits? Do you know who respects their coach today, even though he said no to him? Is Zach Collaros. Because Collaros was begging for a pass interference call in the fourth quarter against Schoen, and O'Shea said no. Do you think Zach Collaros feels supported by Mike O'Shea? You're damn right he does. Because it was the right call. There was no pass interference, and they won the freaking game. Craig Dickinson just wants to be everybody's friend. And you know what he should do? And this is controversial. I know the guys at Piffles hate me for this. Cut Duke Williams. Cut him. That is how you show your locker room that you are serious about winning, because the coach is the captain of the ship, and the direction he's supposed to point the ship is to the port that is called winning Island. And sometimes you have to make hard decisions. They see Duke Williams as a leader on this team. I don't care if he has 480 yards and a bunch of touchdowns. This guy has eye gouged Brandon Alexander. He spit on Sean Lemon. He threw a helmet, and then he basically almost, I don't think it's crazy to say he lost them the game, Darren. It took him out of field goal range in a 2-point game.
Yeah.
Where he had no bit. And what does Craig Dickinson do? He's ruined it for everybody. I'm sure he feels bad about it. Are you a kindergarten teacher? It's like if my daughter on pizza day, threw her pizza at her friend's face and they never were allowed to have pizza day again. It's like darning your socks without a needle. You're missing the point.
Right.
That's not the consequence can't be everybody loses their privileges to sit on the sideline in street clothes. That's meaningless.
True. Yep.
You address Duke Williams, who's a repeat offender. It never should have got here. He is an idiot, and he shouldn't be on the team. This guy would never be on the Bombers team. I don't care what stats he put up, he would not be on the team. And that's why the Bombers are winners, and that's why the Riders are losers.
Clip that. Clip that and run it again. I'm generally on the same page as you. Just from a tangible standpoint, like what is actually going to happen, I truly believe the Rough Riders will make those moves in the off season. I think they will find a new coach. I think they will revamp the roster and try to reestablish culture in that room, in that organization. The shame for the CFL, for the Riders, for Riders Nation, is that it's a Grey Cup year for them.
Yeah.
And they're in some trouble. They're in some serious trouble.
They're in big trouble. And the fact that they haven't cut Duke, you know, their discipline issues are they were the worst penalized team before this game, Darren, and it lost them the game.
Mm-hmm.
It lost them the game in the fourth quarter. Actually, after they were up 11-0, I have notes on this. I won't go through all of it, but after they were up 11-0, they still got to 14. But you're in the Labor Day Classic at home, and you're the team that's taking procedure calls. 2 procedure calls, holding calls. They had illegal block on the return calls.
Oh,
They had unnecessary roughness. They had Duke Williams on the sideline. They had every penalty you can imagine. And they are at home. These are all preventable penalties, Darren. What penalties the Bombers took? Offside. A couple holding calls, right? Holding calls happen when maybe you're beat by a guy, right? It's not because you're undisciplined necessarily. Offside on Labor Day, of course, there's going to be the Jeffs are going to be offside a couple times on Labor Day. The noise level, right? These are preventable things. This is the difference between winning and losing. And the person responsible for discipline is your head coach. And Dickinson wants to please everybody. And when you try to please everybody, you please nobody. And our good friend, sign guy, who's an expert on leadership, gave us some great points. Maybe he can throw them in now about good leaders and bad leaders. But good leaders aren't always wanting to be liked. They are guided by a vision, and that means they say no. It's just a complete joke. They have to get rid of him.
Jeff Felix is right, by the way. As you rant, I'm filling out my fantasy roster. I've already got 2 picks in. This is a weird league with like 8 teams. So it's like boom, 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 pick. Either way, great job, Zach, in painting that entire picture for us. I was with you the whole way because I knew who I wanted. What's going on at Fins this week?
Friday night, this was being organized by our good buddy Trevor Finch, aka Dirty Bird, and then the 2, I would say, fan ambassadors of the Blue Bombers, Bomber Reaper, who was on CGOB this morning with Greg Mackling, great interview, and his partner and wife, partner in crime, Lisa Marie. They are organizing a pre-Banjo Bowl party. You just have to let Lisa know on Twitter. You can DM her at bomber_vixen. Party starts at 7:30 at Finn McCool's at Grant Park. A couple of doofuses are going to be doing a live show, apparently. After
we got to get the logistics down. We got to figure out what's going on here.
Well, Trevor says we're going to be plugged in 100%.
Okay.
For Ethernet. So I think we'll do a live show. Maybe we'll do a couple giveaways. It'll be a great spot. Lots of Rider fans, Bomber fans. This tradition started when our good buddy Frank Horsley from the UK came over for Banjo Bowl a few years ago. And the Reaper, Vixen, and Trevor did a bit of a welcoming party, which was really nice. And so they're doing it again. You know, we're we're somewhat past COVID now. We could do these things. And I just think it's going to be a great way to kick off Banjo Bowl. So I encourage all of you to attend. We'll be there. You and I wearing our bonfire hats.
You won't miss us.
You won't miss us. And I think we'll start maybe the live show. I have to put my son to bed, but 8:30 or something, but doors open at 7:30. I think it's going to be great. Again, if you're coming, just give Lisa a heads up at bomber_vixen, DM her, and it should be a ton of fun. All your favorite fans will be there, and be some drinks and specials, I'm sure. And it'll be our first live show in front of a studio audience, right? So that's when the rubber hits the road. We'll be under the lights, or at least you're a veteran, buddy, but we'll be under the lights. So it should be awesome. I will do a quick update on our fantasy. There's been a change, Darren.
Yeah.
In our fantasy leagues.
The early season heater is
so
over.
And by the way, hey, Curtis Perkins, I saw you on here for the first time. Big fan of yours, buddy. I hope you're still listening. Thanks for joining. So in first still in our pick'em is Ryan Harris, almost by 700 points now over C. Diddick and our good friend Cade, Bomber History. So he's still riding that one. But listen, there's been a change in the leaderboard in our Bonfire Do or Die Fantasy League. And it is NJLAF 705 who's now taken the lead by a mere 2.3 points over Ryan Harris. So they're going neck and neck. It's all good. There's going to be prizes for those people. So Darren, I mean, you got to tell us who you're drafting, right?
Does anybody really care?
They care because you've been silent as a monk. It's very unlike you. So they got to know who's this guy drafting.
It's the Schnitz show with Silent DB. That's what
DB, right?
Hey, I've got a pick coming up in one here, but who do I got? I took this is a 2-quarterback starter league, so I took a quarterback early. I took Lamar Jackson. I took Christian McCaffrey with my first pick. I took Stephon Diggs and Zeke Elliott as the running back pool was getting kind of thin early. But
Zeke Elliott, I don't like Zeke Elliott.
Now I got to figure out where to go.
He's a me guy, and he's a Dallas Cowboy.
Yes.
Tomorrow night, right? NFL opening night.
It's the most wonderful time of the year. More football
more football, the better, right? What's Tom Brady been doing the past 11 days? You think he's been on one of those reality shows with the mask, what is it called? The Masked Singer or something? Or is he having issues at home? Who knows?
I don't know.
He could be having bone density issues. The guy's 45. Darren, you're getting up there. It's going to be you soon. You better be drinking your milk, taking your calcium.
Yeah, no. The calcium is like down on the list. I focus on some other supplements and vitamins.
Tamara, a lot of people care about the NFL. You can love both, okay? You can love both.
Love both. Football is beautiful.
NFL is great football and great entertainment. It's like going to Vegas, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, he's on the Real House Husbands. Maybe Giselle isn't happy with him. Anyway, sorry, Greg. Are you a Cowboys fan? I just think, speaking of the Cowboys, right? There's another team where if you really drill down, they're not actually focused on winning. Jerry Jones isn't focused on winning. He's focused on being Jerry Jones. It's all about Jerry Jones, and he likes to make the big splash, spending big amount of money on mediocre players. His face is in there way too much. People can say they're focused on winning, Darren, but it's your behavior, right? Mike O'Shea, everything he says, does, thinks, sleeps, breathes is winning.
It's all that matters.
Everything he does is about winning. That is Bill Belichick. Everything he does is about winning.
Why play if you don't want to win over everything else? It's a game. That's what games are for.
But people, it's rare that you get a leader who has a strong enough vision and discipline and intelligence. Oh, come on, Fritchie, get this to the Colts,
Matt Ryan, another new
please.
quarterback.
Oh yeah, Matt Ryan. Yeah, right. He'll be the Joe Flacco, the joke Flacco. I'd love to see Matt Ryan get a Super Bowl, actually. Anyway, I think he's a good guy. But yeah, Mike, like it's rare to have like people can say I'm all about winning. Mike O'Shea's first press conference, you were probably there. First thing he said is, do you remember the first thing he said?
Mike O'Shea?
They
No.
asked him, "What are your expectations for this year?" This was 2014 in December when he was hired.
Okay.
He said this is verbatim because I listened to it a bunch of times. The only reason you play is to win the Grey Cup.
Right.
And he said that when he was leading a tire fire of a roster and he got
Yeah.
applause. The media people broke into applause. And I
Well,
thought, wow, like, because I think I was surprised by the O'Shea hire. He was a special teams coordinator, didn't have a
yeah.
lot of experience coaching, but Walters and Miller knew who they were getting.
Well, yeah, I think Winnipeg wanted somebody who was like proven commodity was less important to them, right? It was about somebody who had strong values and intention in what they wanted to do. So in interviewing Mike O'Shea, I have no doubt he probably knocked them off their seats with the things he said and how he said them, right? He's a man of unbelievable conviction.
Yeah.
So no surprise there. No surprise there because um, well, we've seen it happen here, right, over the last 7 years. So, you know, uh,
Well,
it's worked.
it's
That
working, right? And Craig, and this will be the last point on Craig Dickinson, and then I think we got to do our giveaway for our good friends at uh, TSV. But Craig Dickinson can say he's all about winning, but when you don't discipline your players, you're not all about winning. In that moment, you're about being liked,
Mhm.
right? You can
Yep.
say all you want. Words don't matter. It's what you do. And what you do reflects your values and your vision. Sorry. That's like me saying, I say yes to my daughter wanting ice cream for the 5th time in a day because I don't want her to have a tantrum. It's I'm ruling by I'm scared. And Mike O'Shea isn't scared. He has complete self-confidence and he makes the right decisions. Sometimes people don't like him, I'm sure. I'm sure in that moment, Zach Collaros wanted to rip his head off. He wants to stay on the field and lead a touchdown drive to win Labor Day.
Right.
But when cooler heads prevailed, right, when your adrenaline goes down after about 20 minutes, he's probably like, thank the freaking Lord Mike O'Shea wasn't listening to me. Yes, Rob Mahoney, sometimes I give in. I am afraid of my daughter's tantrums.
Well,
But
don't
again,
say
I'm
that
no
out
Mike
loud.
O'Shea.
Oh, you just
Okay.
ruined yourself. You just ruined
Hey,
yourself.
if you have a daughter who is very I don't want to put my foot in my mouth. My daughter is a very conventional, dramatic young lady, right? Her friend isn't. Not all women are like this. Don't
Mhm.
get me wrong. Her mother isn't. My daughter is just happens to like princesses, rainbows, unicorns, and a lot of times she has fits. Sometimes they're for her own edification. She likes to look at herself in the mirror as she's having a meltdown and primp her hair. But like, there are times when she could scream so loud, I don't want her to wake up my son, so I give her a freaking ice cream. But anyway,
You're a
yes,
weak man.
Tamara, to me, I am. Tamara has met my daughter at the cornhole at the Great Cup Festival. Love Tamara, unsung hero. Yeah, Lynn gets what I'm saying. Okay, let's give away that beautiful mug if you can tear your eyes away from your draft.
I just took a receiver.
Okay, who did you take? Antonio Brown, talking about Duke William equivalent.
Yeah. Yeah, I took Antonio Brown. No, I took Allen Robinson. He's got a good quarterback there.
Oh, he's a
Um,
great. Yeah, Allen Robinson is very good for the. Was he still with the Bears?
no. I wouldn't take a Bears wide receiver. Are you kidding me?
Well, poor guy was
Well, he
killing it
hasn't
with
been
the
with the Bears
Bears,
in a
but he's
while. He's with the Los Angeles Rams.
oh, nice. Okay.
Well, okay. So we've got this to give away. Zach,
Yeah.
what's our code word? Should it be banjo?
No, it's going to be Goldilocks because that is the
What?
metaphor for Craig Dickinson. Chris Jones ruled by fear. He was mean, the authoritarian. He was too hot. Craig Dickinson is too cold. He doesn't have it.
And Mike O'Shea is Goldilocks?
Mike
Like
O'Shea is
Goldilocks?
just right.
Okay. Okay. So
Goldilocks.
this is what you want to do. Text the hotline 204-816-TIPS, 816-8477. Code word Goldilocks, and then your name. We will not penalize you or disqualify you if you misspell it, but don't misspell your name. Text Goldilocks to 204-816-TIPS, 204-816-8477. We will pick a winner for this mug. And we still have a winner to pick. I was out of town over the weekend, so I didn't get to it, but for the whiskey glasses from
Yeah.
TSV. So check them out at thesportsvault.com. These are beauty glasses.
Yeah.
We will have a winner for that from the last show a week ago. But we will see you Friday at 3:00 when Chris Walby and I bring you Game Day Winnipeg and our pregame coverage ahead of the Banjo Bowl. Friday night at Finn's on Grant. That's Finn McCool's or Fions for those that are phonetic. And then, of course, post-game, game day after dark, myself, the Schnitz, Zach Schnitzer. We will break it all down on Saturday evening following the Banjo Bowl.
Yeah, baby. And don't forget the Sports Vault. You can get it at Fanatics and Amazon. And of course, the number one spot, the Bombers store with that beautiful TSV logo. And I'm going to show up my mug again because not my face, my mug. I love this mug, man. Jeff Hamilton comes in at the end, and Logan Benson is a new poster here. Welcome to the show. I had never seen you before, but welcome. And thank you to everybody. Listen, Banjo Bowl is just the best game, outside of playoffs, right?
Yeah, agreed.
Andre, Schnitzel, you can call me Schnitzel. You can call me anything. 128, row 11. I'll be there with my daughter and her friend and her friend's
and
mom.
lots of ice cream, apparently.
Lots of ice cream. It's the only time of the year that she gets cotton candy. We're going to try and get there early to get the bouncy castle, and we'll try and say hi to you, Tamara. We're going to have a great time. I think the Bombers are going to just take them to the woodshed this time with the crowd noise, and I'm expecting a fun game, man. And listen, hey, thank you to all of you for tuning in, of course.
And
yes, thank you,
Comment mentioning here, Jeff Hamilton's take on the state of riderdom was epic. Go check that out on our YouTube page or on your podcast app. Search Bonfire Sports right now. It's the Labor Day Classic podcast series we did from the road. Sounded pretty good, actually, for a in the car podcast.
It was great.
Yeah. Shout out Ted Wyman and Jeff Hamilton for jumping on, and we had a lot of fun on both of those podcasts before and after the game from parts unknown in Eastern Saskatchewan. But we're looking forward to a great week here. There's going to be lots of extra bonus coverage on the channel, so keep it locked. Bonfiresports.ca, Bonfire Sports or Bonfire Sports TV, either on social media. You can find all that on bonfiresports.ca, and we will see you back here on Friday for the pregame. And then Friday night, what you want to do, you want to sub up, ring the bell, and when you do that, you'll get an alert to know when we're live. So then it's easy as heck. And if you haven't yet, go to the video below here on YouTube, give a thumbs up, tell your friends about Bonfire Sports, get them in on the action and how much fun it is. I know you guys have fun joining the live chat and all the shows. Final word to you, It's the Zach Schnitzer show, so it's all yours, buddy.
Or as somebody said, the Zach Schnitzel show, which is kind of making me hungry because who doesn't like
I could
schnitzel,
eat.
right?
I could
Who
eat.
doesn't like schnitzel? Well, I think my final word is if you have to sub me off again, if I'm on vacation or something, you can't bring in Jeff Hamilton because the guy killed it last week. He can write and he's a good co-host.
Yeah.
And people wanted me to stay on the chat. Eric, I heard that. I saw that earlier, but I had a ton of fun on the chat last week, folks. You guys are just so much fun. And yeah, I just love this community. And I really would love to meet all of you on Friday if you can come, or come see me at the game. I'm always wearing my Bonfire hat, my number 48 jersey. I would love to meet you. DM me or tweet at me, or
Slide up in those DMs.
slide up those DMs. Yep. It's all about people, man. This is what it's all about. And
I agree with Sandy. No one can replace you, Zach. Love doing this show with you. Looking
you
forward
too,
to the
buddy.
post game. But everybody knows. I think you all got it down here. Bonfire midweek now Wednesdays at 7:30.
Yes.
Rest
A
of
true
the-
midweek show. I mean, this was up for debate. We
Well,
talked
some
about this.
people's
How can we
weekend-
call it midweek if it's Tuesday?
Well, some people's weeks begin on Sunday. That's look at your calendar. The week begins on Sunday, so Tuesday is midweek, but Wednesday, yes, we'll get to.
Okay, and my final word is this: unlike the Riders fans, who maybe don't have the highest intelligence quotient,
Whoa.
don't start booing when they get to the line. Winnipeg fans know better. Rider fans, they let that play clock roll down as the Bombers were huddling on offense. And they were quiet as a church mouse. And only when they got to the line of scrimmage, Darren, did they start booing. They've already have the play, guys. You boo, well, IG Field fans, you boo as soon as they huddle or before. As soon as that play clock starts going from 20 to 19, that's when you boo. That's why we are the best fans of the CFL.
Yeah, that's hard to argue.
And don't do the freaking wave unless we're up by 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. You don't do the wave till I do the Schnitz sprint, which is running up and down the stairs of 128 when the game's over and something exciting happens. You do not do the wave. And you never make noise when our team is on offense.
You just won't have it.
You just can't do that, guys. Come on.
Okay, we'll leave it at that.
We'll leave it at there.
I've got some picks to make here. I've been very distracted today. I feel very ashamed that I'm not putting 100% into
you look very ashamed. You look very, very ashamed, buddy.
All right, everybody. We will see you next time. Wednesdays moving forward, as we mentioned. Pre-game on Friday at 3. Live show from Finn McCool's on Grant.
Come
Friday
on down!
Post-game after dark, getting steamy with the Schnitz here on Game Day After Dark. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate you.
Good night, everybody.